Man, we back. We back with another podcast. So this is episode 4. Wow, this is actually starting to become a habit, which is good. So thank you for those of you who have been listening, watching, and hopefully the audio has improved now that it's being done in mono. And there were a few comments on the last podcast saying that I was breathing very heavily. Well, I think honestly that's because I'm now so much closer to the microphone, so you hear more of my breathing and all that. Like right now, what I'm doing, I breathe a lot during the recordings of my videos. It's just, I don't know, the mics haven't been picking it up. But it's usually because I have so many things going on in my mind when I record these videos that it's just like, whoa, slow down. And I think I'm just like breathing and exhaling and inhaling just out of like habit, or maybe it's just anxiety. I don't know. But I hope I get better at this because I don't want you to keep hearing me breathe during these podcasts. And I want to talk to you guys about the beginning. How did all of this start? And the first podcast that I did was, is it worth it? Like, should you quit? And if you haven't watched that podcast, go ahead and check it out before you watch this video. Or watch it after. I don't know. It's up to you. Whatever you think is better. But the beginning, how did it all begin? Well, at 15 years, I was in high school, right? I went to Calabasas High School in Los Angeles, California. I was kind of a loner, didn't have too many friends in high school. And high school sucked. High school was a really crappy time. I think for most kids, not just me, but for most kids, I would think that high school was a pretty Middle school was awesome, or at least better, but high school was just crap. And Calabasas High School in general, I mean, it just overall was just a crap high school because that's where all the rich kids went, and I wasn't rich, just middle class. And everybody at 16 years old was driving like Mercedes-Benz, BMWs. Obviously, it was their parents. Their parents were like TV producers, most of them, or like lawyers, doctors. And so it was just really crappy to be kind of the outcast because I didn't drive what everybody else drove. I wasn't the popular kid. So two very big things happened in high school for me that kind of changed my life forever. Because I wasn't fitting in with anybody at high school, I was thinking to myself, okay, how can I keep my mind just away from high school? I don't want to be constantly thinking about, am I gonna be called a loser today at high school, or are people just gonna look down upon me? I was like, F that. I'm gonna pick up another hobby. And that's when I discovered mopeds, dirt bikes, gas scooters, ATVs. So I was like, you know what? For my 14th birthday, I'm just going to save up money and buy one of these things. So I bought one. Actually, was it my 14th or 15th birthday? One of them. I'm talking about like estimates here about my age, but I was in high school regardless. So like 14, 15 years old, I buy my first gas scooter. And I'm addicted to this thing. It's literally just, it looks like a scooter with a gas engine on it, like a 40cc weed whacker engine, right? I'm obsessed with this thing. I constantly tinker with it. I take it apart. I put it back together. I constantly I ride it nonstop. Instead of doing my homework, I would come back from school and just ride it. Yeah, that's what I would, and it was loud as hell too. I would just ride it. So a couple of months go by of me using this gas scooter, having a blast with it. And I'm like, you know what? I don't think a lot of people know about this yet. So I decided to pick up a camera. I took my mom's like Canon Vixia camcorder that she was using for her business. And I decided to just film videos of me on this gas scooter and to film like tutorials on how to take it apart, put it back together. And boom, I started my first YouTube channel at the age of 15, creating tutorials on how to take apart and rebuild two-stroke engines. Wow. And this is just kind of what got me into like video production, taking photos. And mind you, this is like before HD was mainstream. This is 480p maximum, sometimes 360p. So it was just like mediocre quality. Obviously the audio was crap, but the fact that I was able to just pick up a camera and just start filming it, it was just a really surreal experience. And the fact that my YouTube channel, after a couple of weeks, started getting a little bit of views. You can still see this YouTube channel. If you type in Mount Motor, MOUNTMOTOR on YouTube, one word, you will find my channel. It's probably called just Josh now, but if you just type in Mount Motor, my channel should pop up and you can see all my little gas scooter tutorial videos that I did. You'll be able to hear my voice before I hit puberty. So that'll be a little laugh for you right there. But yeah, that channel is still up. I haven't taken it down. And a few of the videos that I had on that channel hit like 100,000, 100 plus, 150K views. So that was pretty awesome. Now, this is back in the day when GoPeds were extremely popular. GoPed was a huge gas scooter brand. And actually, you know what? Even though that company doesn't really exist anymore, people still ride GoPeds, race GoPeds. Like, there's still huge events. We're slowly moving over to the like electric tech, like electric scooters, electric unicycles, all that type of stuff. So that's kind of what we're going into. But it's also good to have gas, I think. But we're kind of going off of a tangent in this podcast. But so that's kind of like how I got into video overall. And 15, 16, 17, that's what I'm doing throughout high school, is just working on that YouTube channel, kind of getting the noise of high school out of my head, because I hated high school. I really hated it. What was it? At 16, I got my first, girlfriend. That was a weird experience. Man, dating in high school is just weird. It's kind of funny though, because all the losers or unpopular kids in high school ended up being more successful than the popular kids in high school. I just find that very funny. Actually, the kids that would kind of bully me. There weren't really any fights happening in my high school. It was only like 1,000 kids total, but there would be some kids that would try to talk a little bit of smack, right? All those kids ended up being either hardcore drug addicts, losers, bums, still live with their parents. Like, it's just kind of funny how things flip. But anyway, throughout high school, I was working on that YouTube channel. I had no intentions of making money. I just had intentions of just spreading knowledge of two-stroke engines and gas scooters, ATVs, dirt bikes, and stuff like that. And I started a little website, mountmotor.com. It's defunct now. It doesn't exist. And I started selling these gas scooters, affiliate marketing. That's how I was introduced to affiliate marketing. I think my brother actually got me into that, learning how to make like small commissions off of these gas scooters. So that was my first business at 15, was selling gas scooters, selling dirt bikes. So out of high school, I start going to college. My parents are like, listen, you have to go to college to get a legitimate job. In the back of my head, I'm thinking, no, college it's just not for me. But my deal with my parents was, you either go to college or we kick you out of the house. I didn't really believe that threat, but I just did it for the sake of doing it. So I went to college, community college, Santa Monica Community College. I really didn't know what to do. My parents wanted me to do a double major, psychology and communications. I only decided to do communications because in the back of my head, I was like, why? Why do something that I really don't want to do? Like, is there a purpose? It's just whatever. So I was just like going with the flow, doing my prerequisites, and then eventually transferring over to CSUN, which is a university in Northridge, also in Los Angeles. And during this time while I'm in school, I'm working on my side hustle. At this time of my life, Mount Motor kind of died off because I realized that a lot of people aren't really in the market for gas scooters. It's a very niche field, very niche. Yeah, just niche in general. So a lot of people aren't going to be buying it. So there's not really that much money in it. So I just kept the channel up. I kept the website going until my hosting was up. And I decided to get into more of that videography side of things. So I go online and I look up, just like some filmmaking tutorials, and I notice people using this thing called a glide cam. Glide cam is basically a stabilizer, manual stabilizer. It uses counterweights. If you don't know what this is, check out my earlier videos on this channel. You'll see exactly what a glide cam is and what a manual stabilizer is. I made a ton of YouTube tutorials on this stuff, and it's pretty surreal for me, at least, when I go back and look at these old tutorial videos. So, yeah, I decided to pick one up, and the same stroke of ideas hit me. To go back, show people how this works, start a new YouTube channel, and just show people how to use a stabilizer, how to balance them. And so that's, I started doing those tutorials on YouTube, and they started gaining a lot of traction. The popularity of glide cams and manual stabilizers came about from Devin Supertramp. Devin Supertramp was the big mainstream filmmaker creator back in 2011, 2012. I think this is the dude that made things happen, especially his videos that he shot with Lindsey Sterling, who's a violinist, dubstep violinist who created a bunch of hits. 2011, 2012, this was when Devin Supertramp's career exploded. There was another filmmaker I loved and followed. His name was Max Dream Creator. He also used glide cams, and he was phenomenal. Unfortunately, he didn't get nearly as big as Devin Supertramp. He just stopped creating videos, but there were a few videos of his that I watched. His channel is still online. You can check it out. Max Dream Creator, I think he does a phenomenal job with glide cam work. And after watching these videos, watching these creators do what they do, I decided to pick up a manual stabilizer and just start creating videos and content and tutorials with it. And boom, that's kind of what got me into YouTube. But obviously, I wasn't making money back then on YouTube. I was making maybe 10, 15 bucks on AdSense. This is the very, very adolescent phase of Google AdSense. And this is right between the transition of, when did Google buy YouTube? Well, this is the early on phase of right when Google bought YouTube. They were still trying to work out the monetization and how much creators should get paid and how the ads should work and all of that stuff. So right in that phase. So I was getting paid very little. And so, yeah, I was 19, 20 at the time, still living at home and not being able to make any money. So my cousin got me a job working for this company called Movies by Kids, where I was teaching kids how to, film music videos. We had this little blue screen stage in Calabasas, and we would just shoot music video parties. So, 10, 11, 12-year-olds would host their birthday parties at this blue screen stage, which was kind of cool because you would turn a music video shoot into a birthday party. So I would be the host, the MC, and doing this stuff, and that was really cool. And during this time, again, I wasn't making that much money. So I would be going home every night thinking to myself, okay, how can I really get into the media business? And I was kind of in a rut. I didn't really know what to do. So I go on Google and I just type in life coach, dating coach, and I come across this guy named David Wygant. Okay, this guy was the first dating coach, the first guy to actually make a huge industry out of dating. If it wasn't for this guy, dating would not be an industry. Dating would just be dating. But he actually made it it's a multi-millionaire, almost a billionaire business now, the dating industry. So I reached out to him and I was like, hey, listen, I watched your videos on YouTube. They're cool. I love your advice and everything. Let me shoot your videos for you. Let me intern for you. And in exchange, you teach me how to be more social, how to actually build a business, how to make money. He agreed instantly. So he gives me the address to show up for a shoot. I don't know what's going on. I bring all the equipment that I have, which was not much at a time. It was like these $50 soft boxes, my Sony. Was I on Sony or Canon? I was on Canon at the time. My Canon camcorders. And I show up at the shoot, and lo and behold, it's Patty Stanger that I'm filming. And Patty Stanger may not be as big as she was then, now, but Patty Stanger was the millionaire matchmaker on Bravo TV. You can Google her. I didn't know who she was at the time when I was filming her. So that was my first gig, shooting with Patty Stanger. And so I started working with David as an intern for a little bit. And while I was working with him, I was like thinking to myself, hey, if I reach out to David and this was a success, what if I start reaching out to other influencers? Will that also be a success? And boom, yes, it was. I started getting names like Paige Hathaway, who else at the time? Rebecca Black, Jake Paul, right? If you watch that podcast, if you haven't, check it out. I think it's the podcast before this one, two before this one. Jake Paul, Lele Pons. All I did was reach out to them via email, asking for an internship opportunity. Like, that's all it was. And you know what? They all ended up being paid. Internship doesn't really mean the exchange of money. It's just there for experience, so you can get college credits, right? But it all ended up being paid. So I was really, really happy about that. And, getting 4 or 5 clients paying you, I don't know, what was it? I had them all on retainer. Some was like for $1,500, $2,000 a month, some for $500 a month. It started adding up really quick. So I started having a savings account, with a decent amount of funds in it. My parents didn't understand how I was making money. My dad wanted me to be an engineer. My mom kind of wanted me to be an engineer too. So it was really weird for them to see me making money and then not really understanding how I was making money, even though I explained it to them. They just didn't think that there was money in the field that I was working in. So that's kind of like how I got it started. It was just cold emailing these people with a huge following. And then it kind of got into the momentum. Like back to back, started getting celebrities. It's crazy. And then this guy that I met, Greg, who I met in a frat, actually, I talked about him in another podcast. He introduced me to Vern Troyer, who played Mini-Me in Austin Powers. He introduced me to one of the Jacks. What's his name? Randy Jackson from American Idol, right? He introduced me to him. He got me a shoot with Logan Paul. I talked about that in the podcast previous to this one as well. So it just kind of started spitballing. So my word of advice for you who are trying to get in the field, I would start with influencers. There's influencers everywhere. And don't be embarrassed of working with people with an OnlyFans. I'll tell you that right now. A lot of the clients that I worked with had an OnlyFans. Don't shoot their OnlyFans, but just because they have their OnlyFans doesn't mean that they can't get you recommendations, because yeah, they can. That's just because literally, if you look at it right now, I would say 80% of female influencers right now have an OnlyFans, but don't let that kind of be a deterrent from you working with them, because they can definitely help you. Their millions of followers are going to be your millions of viewers. You got to think of it like that. And so that's just what happened. Lauren Drain is another one, and she has an OnlyFans. So yeah, I worked with her as well. So it's just you got to just get your name out there, produce quality content for them, and this is how your name is going to start being spread around. And then I started working with more serious fitness influencers like Rob Riches, Chef Rush, who else? Mike O'Hearn, obviously. I currently still work with him. And Kai Green. Yeah, I worked with him. Kai Green and Brad Castleberry. I mean, there's a lot of big names under my belt. So I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of the clients that I've worked with. And it takes time, but this is just how I started everything. And hopefully you guys can take this podcast and kind of, dissect it, see what works with your goals. And I mean, this is just something that worked with me. So if you're in a similar boat where you're like in college and you're trying to figure your life out, just don't be scared to reach out to people. Don't be scared to reach out to influencers or anything like that, because believe it or not, it will work. It will work. And maybe in a future podcast, I can share with you some of the emails that I sent, because I made my emails very compelling. This is actually one of the few, not one of the few, but one of the big things that David taught me, that dating coach, was how to write a compelling email. All right. Yeah. Something very important that he taught me was always write an email having the intention that they're going to write back. Always have the expectation that they're going to write back. And then once you have that mindset, you're going to be writing the email completely differently. The signature is very important. So instead of saying, talk to you soon, you write, looking forward to your reply. And that's kind of like NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. So the person who's going to read that email is going to be like, oh, they're expecting my response. I'm going to respond. So you have a much higher response rate when you have the expectation of getting a response back to your email. So that's just like one of the few tricks that he taught me. So if that interests you, we'll make a podcast about it. Let me know. But I hope this podcast has been interesting for you. This is how I got started in making videos. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the next podcast. Hopefully you like this one, and I will see you in another one. Peace.